Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Odd Eds, Odds and Ends. I'm your host, Otter. Today we're going to talk about resin. Resin crafting is a lot of fun, but there are a lot of pitfalls that can get costly in a hurry. For the folks who don't know what resin is, it's a material that starts out as liquid which can be poured into molds that will harden into a solid form. There's a lot of different kinds of resin, but the most popular and common are the two-part resins, which begin as two separate liquids which you mix together to start the hardening process. Then there's also UV resin, which is a single-part liquid that solidifies when exposed to UV light, which gives it a major advantage over me because when I am exposed to UV light, I just turn into a tomato. Now then, for my little disclaimer, I have been working with resin for several years, but I'm far from an expert on its use. However, I am someone who's made a lot of mistakes with resin. If you're interested in working with resin, it's my hope that sharing my limited knowledge will help you avoid some of the mistakes I've made. Also, keep in mind, this won't be an exhaustive list of advice by any means, but I'll start with the basics. If this video does well, I'll do some more. Therefore, if you'd like more resin do's and don'ts, please like this video and subscribe. Leave me a comment with any questions you may have, and if I do another resin video, I'll do my best to answer them for you. Also, I'll be mentioning a lot of products during this video. These will be the products that I use or have used. Always do your own research and use products that work best for your purposes. Don't take my word for anything. I'm just an otter after all. For anybody that's interested, I will include an Amazon link to the items that I use for the specific parts of the resin process that I talk about. Keep in mind that this is not sponsored and not affiliated. I'm just being honest with you. And if you don't like them, well, take it up with that company, not me. Again, just an otter here, folks. Without further ado, let's get started. Do start all projects with a plan. Do not try and wing it. Now, what do I mean? You should have a plan in mind for whatever project you may be doing. Know where you're going to mix your resin, know where you're going to pour it, and most importantly, remember to where you're going to put your project while it sits to cure. Until your project is done hardening, it is, after all, still liquid. Spilling uncured resin is not only messy, it's wasteful and extremely dangerous. Having a plan can reduce wasted materials, limit the risk of significant error, and avoid a serious mess in every sense of the word. This next part piggybacks off the first part, but do have a dedicated space to work on. Do not work with resin on any surface that's going to be used for any other purpose. Resin is dreadfully messy in even the best situation. If you're working with it, dedicate a space specifically for your resin projects. In the beginning, I used to work right on my desk, and that was a huge mistake. Resin would get on items, it'd get on my clothes, it was generally just bad all the way around. On top of that, if you're doing your resin work on a space where you do other things, your risk of knocking the project over and wasting everything is just way higher. I highly recommend getting a folding table and setting it aside where your project won't be disturbed. Speaking of tables, do use a covering for your surface. Do not do any resin work over a piece of furniture that you care about in any sense of the word. I really cannot recommend a folding table enough for resin work. Regardless of what kind of table you work at, though, always cover it. Silicone mats are the absolute best because even if you spill some resin, just let it cure and it comes off no problem. I'll include a link to the mats that I like to use in the description below. Regardless of if you use a silicone mat or not, always put some kind of cover over your table or surface, and a little extra just to be safe. Plastic tablecloths from the dollar store are easy to get and really do the job. Trust me, there's a lot of heavy lifting these little guys can do for just $1. Now I know someone out there is thinking, if I'm going to cover the table, what's it matter if I use a nice table? Or, alternatively, if I don't care about the table, why should I bother covering it? Well, the answer to the first question is a simple because accidents happen. Even if your table is covered, there's always a chance that some resin will find its way to the table. In answer to why cover a table you don't care about, it's because you'll want your work surface to remain level. If any resin gets on a table, it can harden and create bumps and raised areas. You'll quickly run out of surface for your piece to cure on without tipping to one side and messing up the final project. Trust me, I had to retire an entire folding table because I didn't cover it, and now I can't get a level cast on that table to save my life. Cover your surfaces, people. While I'm on the topic of covering stuff, do wear gloves. Do not ever work with resin with your bare hands. Paws, tentacles, other appendages, whatever you gotta do, cover those hands, people. As fun as it is to work with resin, always remember that it is a toxic chemical. Getting resin on yourself may sometimes happen no matter how hard you try, but you should do everything you can to avoid getting it on your skin, fur, or scales. If you do get some resin on you, use a baby wipe to remove it right away. Rubbing alcohol can be useful to help clean uncured resin. However, the alcohol can cause the resin to break down, allowing your skin to absorb it, which doesn't even sound good. If nothing else, gloves will help avoid leaving fingerprints, paw prints, or any other mark or bodily oils on your finished pieces. Personally, I prefer nitrile gloves with textured fingers. I'll link the gloves I like the best in the description below. Regardless of the type that you use, you must always wear some gloves. Keep those hands, fingers, paws, and other appendages covered for the love of all that is good and resiny. Now that we've covered setup, let's talk about resin itself. Do always read all of the instructions for your chosen resin. Do not assume that all resins are the exact same. This one can kind of speak for itself, but always read the containers of your resins. Even similar resins can have different cure times, mixing ratios, and a slew of other different constructions. Even something as simple as the difference between equal parts by volume or equal parts by weight can make the difference between a successful piece or a horrid waste. Read your instructions, people! Now that you've read your instructions, follow them carefully. Do measure carefully. Do not eyeball your measurements. Remember, resin is a chemical. If the measurements are off, the chemical reaction will not occur properly. Poor measurement can lead to sticky resin that never cures, squishy or bendy products, or a number of other problems. Once the resin is hardened, there's little you can do to salvage the project if your measurements were off in the first place. While we're on the topic of measuring things, do use dedicated equipment for all your resin projects. Do not ever use your equipment that was used for resin for food or basically anything else. On top of being an otter, I am also a broken record on this, people, but resin is a toxic chemical. While there are food grade resins, the individual components are not themselves food safe. All measuring and mixing tools must never be used for food. Okay? Okay. Silicone measuring cups and stirring sticks are the best, and I'll link my favorites below. But the next best option is to use disposable cups and popsicle sticks to stir with. Though, keep in mind, this is not a very environmentally friendly option, but you do what you gotta do. Also, as a note, using popsicle sticks to stir can potentially include more bubbles in your resin, so keep an eye on that. And now the last tip for this video. Do start small. Do not mix a large batch of resin at once. Starting small is important because you'll find out how your resin acts and how it works with whatever colorants or additions you use. Certain materials can fundamentally change the behavior of the resin. If you mix a large batch of resin, you run risk of something called flash curing. This is where the resin hardens at a rapid rate and becomes unusable in a hurry. Not to mention, resin generates heat while it cures, and a large amount runs the risk of creating even more heat. I've once melted a cup when mixing too much resin at once. Don't be an otter like me. Be a good otter. Start small and work your way up. It'll save you a lot of frustration, money, and materials. Well, nobody likes a long-winded otter, so I'm going to end it there for now. If you enjoyed these tips and would like more tips for resin working, please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Facebook at OddEds. Just a reminder, look in the description below for Amazon links for all the products that I prefer related to the parts of this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, cheers. Having a plan can reduce wasted materials, limit the risk, and of having a plan can reduce. Nope. I'll include a link to the mats that I like to use in the description below. Now, if you know someone out there. Nope. Now, I know someone out there is thinking, if I'm going to cover the table, what's the matter if I use a nice table? Or alternatively, if I care about the table, nope. You should do everything you can, however, to avoid direct contact with your skin, fur, or otherwise. Nope. Rubbing alcohol is very useful to help cure. Nope. Personally, I prefer nitrile gloves with textured fingers. I'll link the ones that I like to use. Damn it. Resin is a chemical? If the measure. Nope. Again, resin is a chemical. If your measurements are off, the chemical reactions will not occur Nope. A cure. Yep, a cure. Remember, resin is a chemical. If the measurements are off, the chemical reaction will not occur. Damn it! Why do I keep saying a cure? Remember, nope, that was a cup of coffee. That was the wrong button. Wonk. Remember, resin is a chemical. If the measurements are off, the chemical reaction will not occur properly. And my phone buzzed. Almost have it. Silicone measuring cups and stirring sticks are the best, and I'll link my favorites below. Next picks off. Nope, next specs. It's fun to watch the otter's mouth move for this. Silicone measuring cups and stirring sticks are the best, and I'll link my favorites below. But the next best. Damn it! Starting small is important because you'll find out how your resin acts and works with whatever colorants or additions that you use. Certain materials can fundamentally change. If you mix a large batch of resin, you run the risk of something called flash curing. This is where the resin hardens at a rapid rate and becomes unusable in a hurry. Not to mention, resin generates heat while it cures, and a large amount yep, nope. Please like this video. Look for links to those on. Nope. Just a reminder, I'll include links to all of my favorite parts. Nope.